This infection is a lethal threat.
No one is immune to this.
The parallels to Chernobyl do come up. It's completely invisible, it's not palpable, it's not material.
The worst thing about this virus is that it isolates everyone. We are isolated in our apartments, we're isolated from each other, we're isolated from our family members, and our patients are isolated from their loved ones.
As doctors, we are kind of accustomed to death, but definitely not to this much death.
When you walk into an ER, it's not loud, there's not lots of screaming and emotion. It's actually the opposite of that. It's relatively quiet and eerie. Everyone is struggling, literally struggling to survive. There are things like monitors that we have to ration. There are things like medication pumps that we have to ration. When I found out my coworker and friend died 2 days ago, I did break down a little bit.
We need to quarantine New York. It's going to be so bad. It's going to be so horrible. It's going to be horrible here.
The only time I'm not really thinking about COVID is when I sleep.
Because they didn't scan it, and now it says 0 reservoir, but there is clearly something in this reservoir. So
A little over 2 weeks ago, our first coronavirus patient walked into the hospital, and now basically all floors are occupied, ICU and all floors are occupied by coronavirus patients. We do start putting people in the hallways when we run out of rooms. That's the next step. And having coronavirus patients in hallways is a very scary thought.
4:30 a.m.
This thought terrifies me so much that I can't even think about it. I don't even want to talk about it.
This is, to me, the largest mass casualty incident I've ever been a part of.
Today is the 8th of April, I think. I'm losing track of time. Every day feels about the same, but continually getting worse. Just totally overwhelmed with how many patients are in my hospital. I work on a team where pretty much we run around taking care of all the admitted patients. I think I came into over 125 patients in my ER, which is absolutely insane. I've never seen that many patients, and I left with 80 patients that are admitted waiting to go upstairs, so the only time they go upstairs is when someone dies upstairs and there's a bed available. We just don't have any room anywhere else. Even our tent that we put up 2 days ago is already pretty much full, so I feel like a failure. That's kind of how I feel right now.
So I'll start off with my N95, and what I do is I usually have to tape up my nose and put a pad here because it starts really breaking down the skin on my nose. I also put some pads along the back of my head here because it really starts giving me headaches. Then afterwards, I put on either a cloth, reusable. I like reusable masks just to go over my N95. Then I typically put on my head covering, and then on top of that, put this on, and I'm good to go. This is for the average patient. This is not for procedures. So if I'm doing a high-risk procedure, I switch to this mask here, and this will allow me to feel a lot safer when I'm doing high-risk procedures. The apex for me was April 6th or 7th. On that day, on that shift, there was probably someone dying in the hospital 1 to 2 times an hour.
I'll be back in tonight, and then back in tomorrow night, and I hope I can do better for the patients, and for my coworkers, and for myself. Yeah. Thanks for listening.
I think that over time there will be probably videos and photos that will start to creep out and make its way towards the public eye. I don't know of anyone who is willing to risk their whole career on posting a video or some photos from what we saw. Patients placed in every possible location, in the hallway, every monitor being used, every medicine pump being used. I thought to myself, how is healthcare ever going to recover from this?
85B needs assistance, please. 85B.
You know, I had 2 patients pass away within 15 minutes of each other, so I didn't even have time to process. We've never had so many deaths. We've never had to deal with so many deaths. We're all coping each in our own way. Most of these people walked into this hospital. They walked into this hospital with fever and cough, and they left in a coffin. I don't understand how we came to the point in this country when everyone turned out to be so inept and have so little foresight in order not to accumulate sufficient PPE and not to understand that this was coming. It was obvious to me it was coming. I'm a regular doctor. We have people with MBAs, PhDs running these hospitals. I've always been an outspoken person, and if I get penalized for it, let it be. Now, am I worried? Am I scared? Yes. I'm the only source of income for my family right now.
No, that's not a dog. Okay. Oh yeah, that's a dog right there. Oh.
To me, America was all about freedom of speech and people fighting for the right thing and people encouraged to be fighting for the right thing. And then when I got reprimanded in the way that I did, I was speechless. I couldn't understand how this was happening, and I thought maybe it's just my hospital. Now then I learned about similar cases in most hospitals in the United States, and that made me realize that I don't know why hospitals all of a sudden turned evil.
I'll give you a sheep, you got 5.
Oh, thanks.
You're gonna take my horse to the old town road. The old town.
Get
Oh,
one.
I didn't see it.
Do you have any wood to trade?
No.
I am aware of about 4 coworkers that have died from COVID.
Anything you're willing to trade?
A sheep?
I'll take.
I do hear occasionally people say, you know, well, you're a doctor, you took an oath, you signed up for this. But to know that every shift I show up to work could be my last shift of feeling healthy, to know that I'm potentially risking my life and my livelihood and my family's livelihood is something I've still have not been able to accept as this is what I signed up for. If I die, I am no good to the tens of thousands of patients will take care of in the future.
I want to give, now that
mentioned something like this. I want to give Alona a lot of
I came home several times just by 7 p.m. And as I was entering the apartment, I heard the cheer that people do at 7 p.m., which almost felt like they're welcoming me home from the shift. I also saw, by the way, firefighters, and that almost made me cry. They drove to our hospital, they lined up fire trucks, they all came out of fire trucks, they put the sirens and the signals on, and they stand there clapping in front of our hospital. It almost made me cry. It was the most amazing thing ever. And then they were handing some treats to people who came out. I was in the patient's room. I couldn't video record it. I was all in my full PPE, but both him and I were watching this out of the window. And this was incredible. My hospital started providing us with N95 masks, and that has been huge. If I did become symptomatic, I probably would have by now. I feel a little less afraid, and it scares me. And then you have to constantly remind yourself, is the only reason you didn't get sick is because you were aware of your every movement, every moment.
It feels like normality is slowly being restored, knowing that everyone is back here picnicking and playing games and smiling and having fun. I'm doing okay, but if it wasn't for my strong support group, it might not be the same. And there are certain people that I've worked with for many years who've retired. They're done. Probably on average, out of a 250 to 300 bed ER, we have probably about a half a dozen or 5 to 6 COVID positive patients in our hospital most of the time. But a lot of them are asymptomatic. I don't think it'll ever be as bad as it was in April. And I can say that as confident as I possibly can be. There will be a blip when school starts. There will be a blip in the winter when we're trying to figure out, is this flu, is this coronavirus, is this both? But I feel good. I feel confident about the fact that we're going in the right direction, we're recovering. There was this underlying level of death that was all around everyone, but we pulled through. We pulled through.
I think New Yorkers are incredible. I think it was just mind-blowing how fast we were able to drop that curve. I mean, it just dropped. People just did what they had to do. They wore the masks, they stayed home, they kept the distance. I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't think anybody knows what's gonna happen. I think this city is more resilient than many think. And there's still no alternative to New York in the world. I think I'm ready. If there is a second wave, I'll go and treat these patients again. It's okay. As long as we have PPE, we should be okay.